Hey guys, it's Will, your favorite rural campaign and elections expert, and I hope you're having a great night. You know how much I love to share country colloquialisms with you, and tonight I've got a new one. You see, out in the country where I live, whenever we try to take a bad situation and make it seem better than it really is, we call that polishing a turd. And friends, if that was an Olympic sport, J.D. Vance would have won a gold medal tonight. The only problem is old JD did such a good job that I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow there's not an international manhunt to try to find the Donald J. Trump that JD Vance was talking about tonight. For instance, tonight when he brought up this Donald J. Trump who never saw any acts of violence in Jerusalem or Israel when he was president and never saw any attacks on American troops, I wondered, who is this Donald J. Trump? Because it's certainly not this guy. This guy was proven to have lied when he said that Iran didn't fund any T groups when he was president. And it's certainly not this guy whose former national security advisor said he was delusional if he didn't think that the attacks that are happening now would have happened on his watch. And it's certainly not this guy who saw multiple attacks here on American soil when he was president. And it certainly wasn't this guy who lied when American troops were injured by Iran and said, nope, everybody's fine. Look the other way. And nobody can deny old JD was on his game when he talked about this tough Donald J. Trump that wants to defend the southern border and make all Americans safe again. The only problem is nobody knows who that Donald J. Trump is, because when a border bill came to the House and Senate that gave the Republicans almost everything they asked for in a border bill, the toughest immigration bill that anyone in either party had ever seen come from a bipartisan legislature, the Trump team got together and schemed with House Republicans to kill that deal. And not only did Trump brag about it when he said, I think it's dead, in a room full of wealthy donors, he then turned around and bragged about how it shows he's much stronger as a politician than McConnell. And I'm sure you got all warm and fuzzy like I did when old JD talked about the Donald J. Trump who was a defender of the climate, was going to bring those American jobs back to our shores and build more things here. And in turn, he was going to save the environment and stop climate change in the process. Hell, old JD got so fired up talking about it, I thought Sir David Attenborough was going to come swinging in on a Tarzan rope made out of a piece of old recycled Malaysian rubber. Now, the only reason I'm asking is because on multiple occasions, the real Donald Trump has called climate change a hoax and even went so far as to buy into this disproven conspiracy theory that we're about to go into a new ice age. And we don't have to guess what President Trump would do if he became president again, because hell, he did it before. He rolled back more than 100 environmental rules, and you can go look at the full list in the New York Times. Not only does he think global warming's a hoax and was his administration one of the poorest on climate change, but a fact check of his jobs program shows that it would eliminate more than 300,000 clean energy jobs. Maybe old J.D. Vance was so busy cozying up to his Silicon Valley buddies that he didn't realize Donald J. Trump was already president for 4 years and has a manufacturing jobs record to run on. And you guessed it, it's not a good one. Well, maybe some of you can remember what old JD can't. You remember when Trump was in office and he lost 2.7 million jobs? The economic growth rate was a minus 2.2%. And who can forget the fact that he tossed 3 million people off of health insurance? And did all this while losing 178,000 manufacturing jobs. You know, the jobs he claims he can produce now in order to save the climate. And I can't forget either that this wizard of trade deals was so good at what he does that the trade deficit went up by 36.3% when he was in office. But old JD didn't polish that turd any harder than when he talked about women's reproductive rights. Hell, there for a little while, and when he was talking about Trump's record with women, I thought he was talking about Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Stanton. But then I remembered the real Donald Trump, not the one that J.D. Vance described tonight, has sexual misconduct allegations dating all the way back to the 1970s. And let's not forget that old Donnie fully supported a federal abortion ban before his campaign managers came to him and told him it was going to cost him votes on Election Day. And let me ask you a simple question, J.D. Even though he's against a ban now, how is he okay with relegating millions of American women to a third world healthcare system in states where a ban is in place anyway? And of course, all of you can only imagine the chuckle I got listening to J.D. Vance try to talk about the American farmer and rancher. Let's face it, everybody, the closest J.D. Vance has ever come to fertilizer is when he sits down at Mar-a-Lago and listens to the ex-president talk about his great accomplishments. Because none of us farmers and ranchers have ever heard about the Donald J. Trump that J.D. Vance was talking about tonight when it comes to farming and ranching. Because I remember the Donald J. Trump whose tariffs were so harmful to the agricultural industry that he had to increase farm bailouts by $10 billion in the third year of his presidency. And no matter how much you polish that turd, JD, it's not going to change the fact that during every year of Biden's first 3 years in office, with Harris's support and help, farmers have had a higher net farm income than the first 3 years of the Trump administration. And that's due to continue on in the last year of the Biden administration. Now, there's no doubt that old J.D. Vance talks a good game. As a matter of fact, generations of grandmas and grandpas across the South and the Midwest had a lot of names for guys like J.D. Vance. They called them smoothies, Don Juans, fast talkers, and sweet talkers. But I think my favorite of all is the one my grandma used to use, and that's smooth talker. J.D. Vance is a turd polishing smooth talker. Now, folks around here where I live have a really common saying that they use when they see something like what happened tonight with J.D. Vance. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And the Donald J. Trump that J.D. Vance talked about tonight is not a Donald J. Trump that any of us have ever seen or heard. So that said, since Donald J. Trump won't agree to another debate with Vice President Kamala Harris, I've got another idea for a debate. Fox News can moderate a debate between the Donald J. Trump that J.D. Vance talked about tonight and the real Donald J. Trump that we all know. Think about it. Old J.D. Vance wouldn't have to polish any more turds, and when Donald J. Trump started talking to himself, it would be because he was supposed to and not just because he's senile. Anyway, you all have a great night, and I hope old J.D. finds the Donald J. Trump he was talking about tonight.